So we are in a very small town called Auvers-sur-Oise, which is in the northwest of Paris. It's a very small town. We have come here because we wanted to pay homage to Vincent Van Gogh. We have been to Arles before, where he lived in the south of France, and he painted very famous paintings like A Starry Night. He painted
the Café de la Nuit.
Yes. So this time we have come to Auvers-sur-Oise because he spent his last 70 days before he died. It was the time when he was at his utmost creativity, and he painted a lot of paintings over here. So there is a trail which we are going to follow and visit all the sites of his paintings. Also, we are going to visit his house where he lived in a very small room.
It's just here.
Yeah, and we just got the tickets. So there is a guided tour which we are going to go to.
We are also going to the house of Dr. Gachet, who was the doctor who treated him. Dr. Gachet was a huge art enthusiast. He was also a fan of Van Gogh's works. He was one of the very few people other than Theo who gave Vincent motivation. So we're going to see the house of Dr. Gachet as well, if you remember the famous painting by Van Gogh, Dr. Gachet. So first stop for the day is the Vincent Van Gogh's room, where he lived over here in room number 5. It's called the Bravo Inn or the Auberge-sur-Oise. And after he shot himself in the chest, he was the last occupant. The room has never been used after his death. His coffin was kept in the restaurant downstairs on a table. Some of the things still remain intact. His room is intact. The way it was kept in 1896 is still intact, and we got the passport for the room.
So the question is, why did he shoot himself? The reason is that he went to Paris to meet his brother Theo, and that's where he got to know that he's suffering from syphilis and he has very little time to live. So once he came back, the negativity came back, and he started painting very dark paintings. So after a few days, he went to the Wheatfields and shot himself.
So he shot himself on the 27th of July 1890. And for 2 days, with the agony, he was just lying in his bed, in his room. The bullet missed his heart, but it was enough to take his life after 2 days. So imagine the agony when you're lying down for 2 days with the bullet inside your body, just waiting to die. His roommate, I'm sorry I don't recollect his name, was from Netherlands himself, just like Vincent. And he went to Paris. He informed Theo that his brother is trying to commit suicide. So just, say your last goodbye to your brother. So Theo came down. He stayed with Vincent for the last day on the 28th till the 29th of July and watched his brother die. He couldn't bury Vincent in the local church as he killed himself, and in those days the churches were very orthodox and they wouldn't allow you to be buried if you commit suicide. So he performed the last rites in the restaurant of the hotel itself, surrounded by some of the famous paintings of Vincent Van Gogh, that time not so famous, but surrounded by some of his favorite paintings. And then he buried him in the cemetery over here.
So the painting we saw right now, Roots, was his last painting before he shot himself down. The statue we saw right there is the statue of another painter, Daubigny, who was from Auvers-sur-Oise, and he was a rich painter. He lived in a mansion.
But Daubigny lived around 40-50 years before Van Gogh, so the active period of Daubigny was during the 1850s, so that was around 40 years before Van Gogh arrived. The wheat fields on the north of the Auvers-sur-Oise. This was one of the places where Vincent really liked to spend his time. He came with a canvas, with his brushes and colors, and spent hours in a day over here. We have a lot of paintings inside these fields depicting the wheat, the fields, and also one very dark painting with the crows in the wheat fields, which was supposed to be second last painting, where we can see that his mind is slowly edging towards the darkness. And yeah, I mean, these fields, these places are still the same. I mean, there's no change since the time of Vincent Van Gogh over here.
So we are at a place where Vincent Van Gogh was buried right after his death. 6 months later, Theo, his brother, died in Netherlands due to syphilis, and his wife brought him here in Auvers-sur-Oise and placed him right next to Vincent Van Gogh. Very difficult for me to understand that Vincent Van Gogh made more than 800 paintings, yet he only sold one in his entire life, although his brother Theo was an art dealer.
So we just had lunch in the Auvers-sur-Oise, which used to be the inn above which Van Gogh lived. And Vincent, for the last 2 days, he was in his room after he shot himself, and he died there in the room. His coffin was kept in this table behind me. Theo surrounded the table with some of his favorite paintings, and since he shot himself, as I said earlier, his last rites couldn't be done in the church, so his last rites were done here. So imagine every day Vincent, after painting, coming down here for a meal and then going back to his painting. just came out from the Chateau de Auvers-sur-Oise. There was an exhibition going on of the life of Vincent Van Gogh during his last 4 years in France, starting from Paris, then to Arles, then in Saint-Rémy-de-Provence, and finally over here in Auvers-sur-Oise. It depicted his life, his works, and also the very subtle balance between his artistic creativity and his mental health. It had some of his most famous paintings over here, like the almond blossoms which he painted in Arles, like the sunflower pot which again he painted in Arles. Some of the most famous paintings over here which he painted in Auvers-sur-Oise. Also the real letter which the people of Arles wrote to the city council to confine Vincent Van Gogh after he went crazy when Paul Gauguin left him and he cut off his ear. So some of the real artifacts were there, and it was really incredible. This is the house of Dr. Gachet, who used to treat Vincent Van Gogh for his mental illness. So this is the garden of the house, and this is a replica of the table which you can see in the painting which Vincent Van Gogh painted. So this used to be the garden where they both used to sit and have, if not a therapy, long chats over here. This painting is of the buildings over here, but the trees are covering them, so we'll go from the other
side. So that's it. We have finished our Vincent Van Gogh trail here in Auvers-sur-Oise. We visited most of the famous sites. There are a couple more outside the city where we did not go. For now, we are just going to sit here and admire the river and spend the evening over here.
One more part of the city which I'm sure hasn't changed for a long time. And yeah, that's it.